Good morning. Parents' weekend, huh? Does that mean that kids get a good meal out of the weekend? That's what it means. Some of those good things like that, that is one of the best parts. So it's a pleasure to be with you. Let me get a quick sense. Where are senior parents right now? All right, well, you can be proud of that. You don't have to be, you're good, okay. And the rest juniors? Terrific, terrific. Well, it's nice to be out this way, and I will tell you, I've had orientation by way of Fountain Valley for a large number of years by way of my brother-in-law. His sister's children all went here, and they are all just absolutely fantastic people. So as I think of places and I think of people that I know from there, that's always my association. And all three of them, Tyler, Hunter, and Sarah, are fantastic people, grown, functioning adults that have had fantastic collegiate experiences and have gone off to do fantastic things in life. Have any of you navigated the college selection process with an older child? You have. How many have done it 2 times? 3 times? 7 times? Yeah, the most I ever had with, as an admission dean with kids in college was 7 in college at one time. Yeah, I can tell you if I had had 1 set of triplets, I can tell you there would have never been a possibility of more. 2 sets of triplets and then another in that order. So, but I appreciate, and you know, having had the opportunity to be in the back of the room while both Stephen and Jeff were talking with junior families a few minutes ago, this sense of urgency, whether you've got a junior right now or even more so if you've got a senior, it is hit. It is hit. And everywhere they go, they are being asked the question of, what are you doing next? They used to love going to Thanksgiving, and today they absolutely hate it because all the horror stories come out. They want to be relegated back to the kids' table where they don't have to listen to any of that stuff. But I appreciate that all that anxiety and concern comes because there's an unknown. The nice thing is you're in very capable hands, and that's something that you know. I share a story that years ago I went through this school selection process with my own daughter. And you know, it's a process that involves school visitations and tours and the opportunity for her to sit in on classes and the opportunity to complete an application and to, you know, interview and take tests, all of these different things. And then we submitted everything. We had to wait a very long time. The decision of will she get in or not. And fortunately enough, at the end of all that, she was admitted to a number of schools and she ultimately went to the one that she liked very, very much. How many of you remember Paul Harvey? Do any of you remember Paul Harvey? Okay. For those not knowing Paul Harvey, I should say, nationally syndicated journalist. He would do most of his work that was on radio. And one of the shticks that he had with it was part of his news broadcast was doing a feature called The Rest of the Story. And he would bait you. He would be giving you this story of what was coming. And you think, I know where this is going to go. I know exactly where this is going to go. And then he'd have that gotcha moment. Well, the daughter that I'm speaking of was 5 at the time when she was looking at schools. She was applying to a kindergarten program at an independent school in Charlotte, North Carolina. All this hype, all this angst, all of this competitive stuff over a kid going to kindergarten. She had been a 5-year-old by the time she got there. Let's also think of the metrics that we have in evaluating a 4-year-old at the time. I am convinced that she got into school because she was dry the entire time she visited. And that's what governed her acceptance and has propelled her on. But if we think that that's what it's like for a kid going into kindergarten, can you imagine the pressure that our kids face when it comes time to this? The highly public college search time. It's hard. Everybody has stories, everybody wants in on it. I will tell you one of the greatest things that you've got working for and for your kids' advantage is the fact that these 2 guys right here are working with them. These are pros. I guided him at an early stage, and look, he's still a high-functioning adult. And Jeff, I have known for a long time. I will also tell you that I have had greater opportunity to work with Jeff in the past year. Stephen never invited me to his schools because he brought other people in. But your kids will be extremely proficient in their musical knowledge of both Bruce Springsteen and their knowledge of Seinfeld references. So part of their requirement will be, I've got to go and meet with Mr. Kurtzman. I better brush up on all my Seinfeld episodes to be current. And it wouldn't hurt the rest of you as well. As your kids go into this, I well appreciate that they are coming into this at a very interesting time. The college landscape, college admission landscape, has been under absolute attack in the last number of years. And it started back when it's been going on for a long time, but if we think of what has taken place, we've seen a number of things. We are seeing a large number of students on the decline. So we are only seeing growth in kids going off to high school in one of the 4 quadrants in the United States. And if you think 1, 2, 3, 4, it's that 4th one. It's that southeast. That's the only area where it's growing. And you've got the largest price sensitivity in the country in the southeast. We're seeing a large number of colleges and universities that have been closing and or merging. And to be honest with you, the sad part today is it's really not even newsworthy today. As places come together and places just simply fold. You really don't hear about it to the same extent. We heard about scandals that were related to wealth and students having these unbelievable athletic talents that weren't really known of as people came in the back, or better stated, the side door at some colleges and universities. And many of them we know the names of, but that concept of what would have been labeled admission blues. The College Board, less so with the ACT, but the College Board has changed the game continuously. Changing the format, the scoring, changing their ability to really do good things. The PSAT was an absolute debacle in its rollout this past week. So the College Board is not gaining much favor as one of the world's largest 501c3s. Students filling out applications and playing the odds at early decision, it continues to grow. But there's a part of that that has to be unpacked to understand, why is all that growth taking place? There are some real reasons behind it, and if you know what's happening there, it starts to make sense. We saw the impact by way of COVID, and some of our seniors are still living through that right now, and the experience that they had is a little bit different. So we've had to kind of rethink the way we look at many different things relative to what an application means. Colleges and universities shifted to test optional. A large number did. And now some are in that decision-making phase. The late ones are in that decision-making phase of, do we go back or do we stay test optional? Most have landed and made that decision. And students lost their abilities over this time to do certain things. Those things, Stephen used the word joys, those things that they just are so excited about doing. They lost some of those opportunities. So we appreciate that how a student presents themselves today is it's a part of who they are and what they will become. But I think it's important to unpack some of these things because there can be some concern that comes by way of this. What are some of those things to talk about? One is going to be a Supreme Court. A Supreme Court kind of rocked the college admission world on June 29th. We knew it was going to be bad because the later it came out, the worse it was going to be. As they had the ability to be talking about recruitment, admission, and how we work to yield a student, we were waiting to see. They hit one piece. They hit one piece, and that happened to be the admissions piece, or selection, how we select. So we don't have the opportunity to be aware of race at the time of admission. Are we surprised by the decision that they made? No, but I would say we're disappointed. And I think it clearly illustrates that the court has zero understanding as to what holistic review means. Race is not a reason to admit. Race is a piece of context. Just like where I live is a piece of context. Where I go to school is a piece of context. That is how it was used. So that is the sad part. And having done this for 39 years, it was a little bit of a hard thing to have a slapped understate, we don't trust what you do. Are you admitting people for all the right reasons? You know, it's interesting in what the court pointed at as well. They pointed at the fact that the benefits of diversity are no longer a compelling reason to be using diversity. It's something that you can't measure. It's too elusive. Interesting point is, as Roberts then wrote the brief as well, what did he also say? He said, though these interests are worthy and commendable, but you can't use them. There's negative effects impacting different stereotypes that relate to specific races, classifications that were negative, and as a result, there were lower admissions rates for some groups. And finally, the last thing that they said is there's no end point. We were destined to get this one because the fact that Sandra Day O'Connor almost 25 years ago said at some point we won't have to have race in this world and any consideration for that. I wish she was right when she had said that 25 plus years ago. The sad point is I don't think as a country we are there yet. So while saddened, I think to know that colleges and universities, I think as well as schools, are going to continue to be looking to have the most diverse, the most beautiful type of community that students can learn from one another in place, and they'll continue to live by the letter of the law. Jeff said this to the group of junior families earlier, but in the world of testing, I think the test optional ship has sailed, and we have seen where colleges and universities are going to land on this. It is not the most important factor. I will tell you that Davidson College uses a rubric, and we put different point values on different things. We don't admit students based on the point values that we put. It's just simply a way to calibrate and a way to understand, and it creates a starting point. And in that rubric, testing has never been a part of it. I've been there almost 20 years. We've never had it as part of the rubric that I've built there. So the interesting thing about it, it's just an extra piece. There's a high correlation between wealth, the number of bathrooms that one has in their family home, and the SAT score that they receive. So it is not the greatest indicator. So I will tell you, and Jeff said this, and he's absolutely right again, and that is going to be that test optional means test optional. You can submit it or not. And we don't immediately go into this negative thought of, Stephen didn't submit his test scores. He must have had horrible test scores. And then we don't sit there in committee and say, I bet he had a 900. Nope, I bet he had an 880. No, we don't do that type of thing. We don't even think about it at all. Now, as a test optional school, and we jumped on that early on when we saw that kids weren't going to have the ability to test, the interesting thing was we asked to say, please submit it on the back end. You could have been applying to the college, you didn't submit your test score, but we know that most of them took them. So as a result, we said, will you send it to us? And we are amazed at the number of students who didn't send their test scores. And we're like, did you see the score that you had? Yeah, you had a 1480. I know, but I thought I could have gotten at least over 1500, so I didn't submit. So there's lots of crazy reasons. And that proved to us we can't assume. We can't assume what a student would have. We can't jump to the negative. So test option really means test optional. Use it as a way to present your best self if you would like to. And you decide what your best self might be. We're starting to see some of these places making decisions on it. I don't think we're surprised that MIT went back to requiring it. Now, we've seen a couple of other colleges and universities come back and say, us too, because they don't want to make big splashes, with this. But again, appreciate optional is optional. So we're taking things away. There's some things that we can't evaluate during this time because we don't have them anymore. So I kind of like to think of it as we're working with what we're given. That's all we can do. So as a result, what we do have, there's greater weight placed on those things. So what do we crutch on? We crutch on a transcript. We crutch on the courses that a student has taken, the rigor, the grades that they have earned. We're looking at their writing. We're looking at how the app was crafted. A well-crafted application can tell a beautiful story about a student. And you can tell those that spent time on it and those that just slapped it together. Last minute. We want students to spend time on it. And it's also important what others are saying. It's increasingly important about what others are saying. And that benefits you beautifully by being in this type of an environment. Context is important. Additional context beyond what we are typically getting is really valuable. And we will hear about all of those different nuances from a place like Fountain Valley, which is absolutely fabulous. Changes that have been made in grading, changes that have been made in program, changes that have been made by way of any types of evaluation. We hear about those things so we can be current as we look through and understand what should we know about each and every student. The type of teaching, the quality, the grades earned, the levels of preparedness, that's all critical. And we're getting great information about that. It often probably brings you to the question as well of, do you know my school? Now, we always get these types of questions. Do you know that my child goes to this school? And at this school, you know, it's a very rigorous school. It's the best school ever created. And if they were at home and they were going to the local public school, they would undoubtedly be the valedictorian. There's no chance they wouldn't be. You know, that is an untested hypothesis, so we usually don't go there, but it's our job to know about different schools. So do we know that you don't offer APs? Yes. Do we know that you've got a Global Scholars diploma? Yes. Do we know that you have a capstone? Yes. We know about those things. And to be honest with you, for an admission office that it's worth its salt and wants to have relationships with schools, I think that's exactly what we should know. And that's why our colleagues come, that's why they look to visit, and that's why your colleagues have direct people on our teams to be getting in contact with. Not just for advocacy purposes, but to give context, and context that is going to be helpful. Writing samples, I believe, are going to be growing in importance. I heard the question about AI, related to this as well. And I do know that the ChatGPT function, and we've all played with it because it's kind of fun, but it doesn't sound the way that Chris Gruber sounds. You know, a lot of people have said to me over the years, you write the exact same way you talk. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. I don't know if your poor speaking style mirrors your writing style. I don't know what that means. But each of us, as well as students, have a voice that we want to hear consistently. So I don't know if it's the best tool. I will tell you I'm not going to get into the policing business going forward, because the fact that I'm not going to be able to police what a student does and how they learn over the coming years. But I want them to be honest with themselves. If you're looking to invest in education, you're looking to grow in your own self. ChatGPT is not going to be the biggest thing that helps you all the time. You can't crutch on that for a lifetime. I mention this by way of writing because I do think that an important element that it's going to be in your kid's application is that one question that most colleges ask as a supplement is going to be, why are you interested in going to this school? Why College X? Why Davidson College? And there's going to be a premium that is continually placed on that. Number one, do you know about the place? Do you know where you're going? Do you see that connection? Jeff mentioned an equal sign. Is it a right fit? Where college and student come together. Because colleges are looking very carefully at community today. You know, a world that is extremely divided, and I say world just beyond country, when we look at what's happening everywhere. Colleges are looking to build places that are going to lift people up, learn from one another, and be able to move forward. So the takeaway here, parents, is, and I know these guys know it, don't let your kids put off until the last minute some of those writing samples. They're going to be very, very important. Abandon the thought, whether it's held by your students or whether it's held by you, that you have to have more of everything. You've got to take more classes. You've got to be in more clubs. You've got to get more leadership. You've got to, create more cures for cancer. You've got to start more clubs and organizations. You don't. You don't. In an effort to, leave no stone unturned, and this came still post-COVID, we're seeing lots of this. We're seeing students and families really pushing hard to have the world's longest resumes of all the things that you have done. Echoing back to what Stephen said in this session earlier, let them have joy in the things that they are doing. You don't need 15 things. If I see 3 powerful things, you're spot on. You're going to do great things as a result. Use good sources of information. There are a lot of bad sources out there. And the idea of sourcing, I think, becomes critical because I will tell you what will fester in your mind are the one-offs. Yeah, I heard that College X is doing this, and you'll immediately believe that that's going to be gospel for all places. That is not going to be true. I share this by way of personal experiences because my youngest daughter went through the college search just 5 years ago. And she would come home saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I would have to knock that down and say, that is not real. That is totally garbage. So my thought here is going to be the rumor mill is massive. And make sure that as your kids hear about different things, let these guys be the source. They will get to it. And if they need to call a college or university, trust me, they're going to have that answer in short in short order. There are a lot of colleges and universities that are at odds with themselves today. Rankings continue to be a big thing. So the question that they've got in their mind is going to be, do we want to invest time and money on making us a better institution or simply a place with a better reputation? There are differences that exist there. I'm a believer in the statement that reputation lags reality, and I think in the educational world probably by 5, 10, even 15 years. My point with that is, please make sure that you are current with the information in your household as your kids navigate the college search. My oldest is 31. She got married last Saturday. When I went through this process with her, I had to admittedly reshape my thinking because I was thinking of colleges and universities the way I had thought of them when I went through that process. That is a horrible place. That's where Rachel Smith went to school. A high school person, I would never go to a place such as that. But I had to reshape all of those things and learn as to who they are today. Your kids aren't standing still in time. Don't think that an institution is. Fountain Valley is constantly growing, evolving, coming to the times that are needed, looking to be more progressive, looking to do things that are right to best build the best iteration of student when they graduate. Schools and universities are doing the same thing. So as a result, all those different stereotypes, we want to keep all of those types of things in check. I love to talk about our jobs as parents and what should our role be. And I'll quickly just hit on a couple of those different things. A lot of these things have come to me over time by way of being an admission dean for almost 40 years, but also living it as well. I will honestly tell you that I believe that I became a better enrollment officer by living through this with my kids. And I had two, it happened quickly, and then we had this other child. I gave a talk at a school up in Massachusetts years ago, and I spoke about the difference in ages of my children. And a mom came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, so you must be on your second wife now." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. It's just our son was such a pain in the butt that we had to wait for a period of time." But what do I think in terms of roles? I think our role is to look to make this a family undertaking. And obviously here working in concert with your counselors. But I speak from experience in knowing that students are looking to please and they feel a great deal of pressure. Only later are they going to realize that you truly wanted what was best for them. Keith Kleiber, who was a former fabulous colleague, he was from just outside of Columbus, Ohio. He's at Bexley High School. He was quoted in their educational section of the newspaper. This is going back now almost 35 years ago. And he stated, "Some parents simply want their kids to attend a college or university that is going to get them clout on a cocktail circuit." I mention that because we often see students applying to colleges and universities that they have no interest in. We asked the question on the Davidson application essentially of why Davidson? Why is it that you want to go here? And I guess it was in my second or third year at the college that this became one of my all-time, to this day, favorite answers. Actually, I have zero interest in Davidson College. When we visited, it quickly became my dad's favorite college, and he made me apply. During our visit, he purchased both a sweatshirt and a hat, and since that visit, he constantly wears them and shares that this is the place for me. While I do believe that Davidson is a great place, I do not see myself there. You would do me a great favor if you rejected me. So, the student got exactly what they wanted, and of course the dad called thinking, "I thought we were a great fit." Let me read something to you. Parents, you want to know your student's profile. You want to understand all the different things that they are doing and what is realistic for them. Listen to your college counselors when they look to help you align lists of colleges that may be more realistic and in line with where your student should be thinking. A shift from Harvard, Yale, and Princeton to Dartmouth, Penn, and Brown is not necessarily the realignment that may be appropriate. Help your kids to have no surprises. Have the talk, and the talk being, are there things that you need to put on the table? Things to put on the table that you shouldn't wait until the end. Things that are going to govern perhaps a list and how this can be addressed over these coming months and year and a half. An example could be costs. Are you willing to spend up to a certain amount? Is there a certain distance? I know a young woman that I met with years ago. I said, what brought you to Davidson today? And she looks at me and she said, did you know that Davidson is 296 miles from my house? And I will be honest, when I went down to our lobby to meet with her, I had not looked that up. I had not even thought that that was a point that I needed to know. But her father had told her that she can go up to 300 miles. So we met her geographic boundaries. Are there health things that relate to the student, that relate to a parent, that relate to another sibling, that would say, I think it's going to be nicer for you, it's going to be better for you to be home? Are there things, any other family situations? Are there going to be moves, changes in jobs? Have all those talks ahead of time. Help them to be discriminating consumers. If you ask a kid as things are being explained during a college visit, do you know what all those things mean? They're all going to tell you, yeah, I know what that means. Do they really know what all those things mean? Do they know what it means to have an internship in the summer? Do they have an understanding as to what summer earnings might mean? Do they understand what true research with a faculty member might include? Don't be the most memorable family member. Don't be the most memorable family member to a college admission office. Okay? We keep lists. We have codes on our system. Facilitate the process. You don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen when your kids are applying. Help them hold true to their values, their beliefs, the things that are important to them. And I say that considering over the last number of years, as we've seen different legislation, laws change in our country, some students, and I will say I know some women, and I've heard this and had these conversations directly, have said, I will no longer be looking to go to school in these states because of the fact that I don't want to have my rights governed by the state. Some are looking, we've got 35 different anti-DEI laws that are in effect right now across state legislatures. Allow them to hold true to what is right for them, but to also ask the question about what are those colleges and universities doing as this different legislation takes place. Trust your counselors. Independent college counselors. They are not going to move the needle and get you admitted to places that your school wouldn't have gotten you into. That's the selling point. But they often are looking for a student to fit into a certain construct as well. If you do this, 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 and that's the shtick that they sell it with. If you do these 5 things, you're going to have better chances. Trust me, that doesn't work. Because Jeff made the point earlier, they don't know your students. Let them do the planning. Set times to talk. We spoke on Sunday nights as we were cleaning up. So if you've got time, if your student's a day student or even a boarder, find those right times to talk and pick their brains on this. Choices are what we have when we go into Starbucks. Choices are what we have when we go into a restaurant. Students don't have choices in the college world until they've been offered admission to them. So the concept of what's your first choice, I think that's not a good question. Tell me about the colleges and universities that are on your list. Tell me why they're on your list. It's easier to have the conversation, and that's true for your own kids and their friends as well. Makes the conversation down the road, as the list has changed, a little bit easier. Letters of recommendation. Don't get lots and lots of extra letters of recommendation. That's exactly what they're called when they come in, and we put them as a label of extra letters of recommendation. Even if they happen to be coming from people that have very impressive names, very impressive titles, and I might want to save the letterhead because that was a very cool person. Those are things that do not move a needle for us. They control the way that they are viewed in this environment, something for them to remember. They control how they are viewed, how they are known, and hopefully how they are appreciated. They're always being looked at. Nice thing to know. Don't encourage them to do anything that would be viewed in my mind as transactional. You know, they're doing that service thing this upcoming weekend. That's something that you should probably go out and do. I know that you were thinking of going off and being with your friends for the weekend, but they're doing that service thing. You should go, because colleges and universities like that stuff. No, we don't. We don't. Doing something just as a one-time thing, no. If it's one of the things that you're committed to, that is better. Service is not a requirement. Nothing is an absolute requirement. Listen first, then talk. Your kids will have their own ideas. I know by way of personal experience that if I offered anything, we could go in the absolute opposite direction, just because. But fascinating to have three kids that grew up in the same house with such different ideas, different beliefs, and what they focused on. That part I absolutely loved. And then we remember who's going to college. It's them. And that is just simply, that is just the absolute best thing. I can offer, those are things that I think of in terms of parents and things that they can be doing within their role. I often offer do's and don'ts of things that are out there, and I'll just pick a couple that I think are just really important things. I'll start with don'ts. Don't believe that the only way to get into colleges and universities is by way of early decision. Early decision can lead to early disappointment when it's not being done for all the right reasons. So higher acceptance rates, let's understand why there are higher acceptance rates. Do not wear hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and the like from colleges when you visit an admission office. I don't care if it was cold when you visited Duke. You will freeze while you're on our campus, but you are not going to wear that blue sweatshirt while you are on my campus, while you are here. Don't miss deadlines. Don't miss deadlines. Don't let your kids underestimate, and these guys won't let this happen, the time that it will take for them to fill out supplemental and short answer questions. It takes a lot. This is not just made up of grades and test scores in an admission process. We're looking at the whole student. And boy, what a fabulous thing for your kids to be at a place like this where we have the chance to know the whole student by way of counselors, by way of teachers, and to see how they have grown all through the years. Don't ever say we scored a 1410 on our SAT. We will ask the question, if you use the pronoun we, is that both of you combined? Okay? Do not have or purchase for your child for a holiday time 50 award-winning college essays. We all have a copy of that book, and those are bad, outdated essays today. Do not have your child take the SATs 8 times, combined even with the ACT. If you do, they should be listing that as an activity, and I'd encourage you to have them do that, okay? The last thing I'm going to share here is the appreciation of don't have your lists shared. A list of colleges and universities that a student is applying to, it is their list. It is their list. It does not need to be shared with others. It doesn't matter. I loved watching this, especially with my youngest. I encouraged her, don't share this. With a last name like Gruber, I have a daughter named Heidi and one named Greta. So we have slapped massive Germanic names on them. So I loved it when we'd hear, Greta, where are you applying to school? And she would say, mostly liberal arts colleges. Which ones? Places primarily in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Oh, what are your favorites to date? Well, all of the schools on my list I like very, very much. To which the person finally said, you aren't going to tell me where you're applying, are you? And she said, no, I am not. And Greta Gruber is one of the more shy people, so I was very proud of her when she held up and did that. So a couple do things, and then I'm going to let you be, and I want you to have time with your kids. Do remember that while this process symbolizes our parting of ways, it is still a journey that I think should be taken together. What joy to be able to go through this with our kids. It's a fabulous thing to be able to watch them with. You know that the greatest gift, and our son shared this with us, the greatest gift that you can have is your child going off to college and then them saying, I was very well prepared. And that is precisely what Fountain Valley is doing for your kids. They're going to have the chops to be doing great work when they get there. That is just the best thing that they can be doing. Encourage them to leave their legacy here. Encourage them to spend good time on their application. You do know that there are some factors that you can control, and some things where colleges and universities are a little bit fuzzy on, and they don't bring these things to the front, include demonstrated interest. These guys will tell you if a college or university is a place where that student should be going to the program, engaging, clicking, opening the emails. They will tell you. And also appreciate that your ability to pay at colleges and universities today drives a large number of admission processes. and can be a very, very powerful piece. And the last thing that I would always say is the fact of, let's always appreciate that where our kids get into school is not our report card on parenting. It is not. You know, we have worked to raise fantastic people and give them fantastic opportunities, as evidenced by where you are today and where you've elected to have your kids in school. This is my 39th cycle. I love the work that I do. I love even better when not students are admitted, but 4 years later we get to see them graduate. They're happy, they've done fantastic things. Your time's coming with that, with your Fountain of Valley experiences in the coming year or year and a half. That is the absolute best. So we work with a diligence to get this right. We spend a lot of time on this, and that allows me to sleep at night. We look to be as fully transparent as we can be about how we are looking to go about and do our work. And I encourage you to push colleges and universities to defend their policies and the manner in which they do those things. Because if that happens, your kids are going to be at a place that is going to be, I think, very, very right for them. The last thing I will tell you is tell your kids now that you are proud of them. Tell them now. Don't let it be based off of where they get into college, where they elect to go. You tell them now, because I think that's something that is just absolutely very, very important. And I leave you with one final thought. You're in very capable hands. This is as good as it gets in terms of people doing fantastic work and knowing the industry and being respected. That call is going to be returned when the call comes in. So you're in very, very capable hands. New to Fountain Valley, not new to the rodeo, okay? So I will stop there. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have or further confuse you, or just say, get out of this small room and get up comfortably and go. Up to you.